Hi everyone, how's it going? My name is Alex. Um, I'm currently preparing for a bunch of software engineering interviews, and I'm using HackerRank website to go through some of their problems. I have started with arrays, and I realized that there's not a lot of resources out there that are potentially helpful for students. So I thought I'd make my own, and hopefully you will find these useful as I'm going through these on my own. So the first problem we're going to tackle is the 2D array, and I will have a link to this in the description. But basically what this is trying to do is going through this problem of having an array that's 6 by 6, and then ultimately calculating the sum of these hourglasses that is made inside the 6 by 6 array. And so here's one, then later there's another one, etc., etc. So you can see it as you go along. And I found that it was fairly complicated when I first started off without having a lot of programming experience. So let me just go through this with you guys. So firstly, what you'll want to do is create a 2D array that's 6 by 6. And so how we do that is we just want to create an int array. So we're going to say int array y, and it will be new int 6 6. I made a couple of errors here, sorry about that. And so what this basically does is it creates an integer array. Sorry, I forgot these as well. Wow, I'm terrible at this. But what this basically does is it creates an integer array that has that is 2D, and it has 6 rows and 6 columns. Now, for this problem, you'll want the user to actually input the values into the array. So you will want to use a scanner function. So what we do is we just type in scanner new scanner. And because we are gathering data from the user, you'll want to use system in. Now, it's complaining about a bunch of things as usual, but we'll want to import the scanner, and hopefully that will solve the problem. So just click on here, and the error should go away. Awesome. So what we should do right now is initialize the array with values. And to do that for a 2D loop, we should definitely use a for loop. So just type that in. For the for rows, we will use int I is equal to 0. So because we already know the size, we can just simply say as long as int I is less than 6, keep appending I by 1. And now to do the same thing for the columns, we'll just quickly repeat something similar. Now here, you actually want use the scanner function. So we say array y, which is our array name, will be filled with, we should probably specify I and j, will be filled by the scanner, the next int function. Awesome, so we're pretty far along the problem. And now comes the tricky part. Now, once you imagine the array, you have to keep one thing in mind. how large can the hourglass get? Now in this example, you can see that because there are 6 rows, it shouldn't go past the 6th element in that row. So take a second to think about what that will look like. Now here's a drawing I did very quickly. And as you can see, if it goes past the 4th value, it will actually cause an error because there's no 7th element in the 2D array. So let's create a for loop that will check how that will look like. And I will be doing the problem with you, so if I make a few errors, I apologize for that in advance. So similarly, for int I is equal to 0, we want the I value to not go over 4, and then we just keep going forward. Same for the other value. We also don't want it to go bigger than 4. Now here's something to trip me up. We actually have to think about how we're going to write this code, because going forward, we're going to have a value we compare each hourglass to. So here I'm going to quickly make a int value, which is final, and I'll set that value to a function called integer dot min value. Should be this. Let's see whether it works. They wanted me to do that. Sorry about that. And so this is basically the smallest value. We don't want to use 0 because there is a chance that actually 0 might be bigger than the smallest hourglass, which was actually -1. Now that we got that sorted out, let's think about something that's kind of interesting. If you think about how the value will look like, we have to consider giving it a temporary value, and then I'll call that int temp. Now temp is going to equal an array. Now let's go back to this example. So we want to consider element I plus 1, and element I plus 2. Also considering that it's in the first row and in the first column, second column, and third column. So what I'll do here is I'll say array y, and I'll just copy that for future reference. It is the first row and the first column as well, plus the first row still, and actually the second column, so j plus 1, plus still first row, and now the third column, so j plus 2. So now we have the first 3 elements. Now how we're going to get to here? Well, you're simply going to use second column and second row. So how we're going to do that, array y is equal to I plus 1, and j plus 1 as well. Now that we have that, we want to move to our last set of values. And here what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use something we already used before. and just copy that here and change it to I plus 2. Now I know this is a lazy way, and I'm a lazy guy, so don't hold me accountable for it, but there you go. Hopefully no one who's going to interview will see this video. That looks about right. Now, important here is to change the column values, but as you might already guess, we're actually not changing the column values. We're just going to add one thing here, and that makes our temporary value. Now, let's include an if statement, so that will basically allow us to assign it to the final value. So if temp is bigger than final val, we want to assign temp to the final val. So final val is equal to temp. Now I already have the code solved over here, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this to see whether our code works. Let's see, so for loop started here, so I'm just going to put this statement here and print the final val sum. Now it's going to ask me to enter a bunch of different values. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to enter these values. So this might take a while, apologies, but 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 2, 4, 4, 0. And awesome, the code worked. As we expected, we got the sample output of 19. So that concludes the first video in the HackerRank series. If you guys want to see more videos like this, let me know in the description. It was really fun making these, and it's really helpful actually speaking about these out loud. So if you would like to see more, just let me know and I'll definitely continue making these. Thank you for watching and for your support.